In today's video I'm going to show you how I produce my new house track. It's called In Your Arms Again. Let's dive straight in. So the first thing I do, I start off with a chord progression. Now one of my favourite keys is F minor. B minor is also a nice key. And so when I'm thinking about a chord progression for a house song, I want to, even though I'm in a minor key, because I want to keep the song rolling and I want it to be quite emotional upbeat, I'm going to try and incorporate some major chords in there. I don't want too many minor chords if the roots are minor. You can see here the way I've voiced these chords. So we've got, start off with F minor, D flat, A flat, and we've got E flat. So the chord progression of this is 1, 6, 3, 7. So with a house song, the reason this works is because it never really resolves. So the progression cycle, it never really lands on the traditional 5/1 cadence, which gives it that hypnotic looping quality house feeling. There's always forward momentum. So as I say, all the chords in this, the 6, the 3 and the 7, are all major chords. So I normally start off with piano. It's my go-to instrument to write melodies and write the chords initially, and I just use Nexus, and I like this ballad grand piano. You can see I normally pull the third up to the top, so you can see I pull I'll revoice the chords, nice spacing so it sounds nice and lush, and that's what I've gone with. So there's the chord progression. The second thing I do then next is try to write a melody. Now what I normally do is write 3 melodies. Not always 3, sometimes 2, and I'll pick the best one. Sometimes it works straight off the bat with the first melody, not always. So as I'm writing a song, and I like a bit of melody, that I do write the top line melody. So you can see here we've got the melody, and this will get sent to the vocalist along with my vocals in the song as well. But at least if I'm a bit pitchy in my singing, even with some auto-tuning on, it doesn't really matter because I've obviously got the top line melody. So now this is the melody I wrote for this song, and this is the first verse. So you can see here that we've got a melody that's rising up as we go from left to right, and then it finishes off on the B flat here. This melody here is different, so this is called a B melody, and that's what rises up and comes down as well and settles on the G. So in the builder we have A, A, B, and then we have a variation of the A. So it's A, A, B, A effectively. So that's the pattern of the melody. Okay, so this is the build-up. So that's the build-up, that's driving into the drop chorus. We have a fill section here. And so quite early on I'll also be writing lyrics, or something might just come into my head and I'll start singing it. So what I have as I write a song, I have a document, a working document, so it tells you the BPM, title of the song. Obviously that sometimes comes later when I've written the lyrics. I have the key down there and the chord progression, and this is the vocal guidance that did get sent to the vocalist when it was sang. But yeah, you can hear there's a lyric section, so I'll start writing things down, vocal chops, that type of thing, and sometimes I'll start singing on the track and record myself in the microphone. But initially I'll get some ideas down and try and sing some lyrics to the top line melody that I've written. Sometimes I don't write a top line melody at the start, sometimes I just sing over the track, over the chords. And recently I found that that's the better way of doing it, and just ad-libbing and just keep singing and singing and with different melodies and just see what sounds right with the words. So that's the working document that is open all the time. I've got the door open as well. So I know a lot of people, they might write the drop very early on, and if the drop's not very good, then they won't continue with the song. With myself, my process is I think of the idea and the way I tell a story. I'll start telling the story in the verse and the build-up. I think if I develop a hook quite early on, part of the melody, then I might jump to the drop and then also write the drop at the same time without finishing the build-up. So it just really depends. Everyone's different and there's no right or wrong, I don't think. First we've got a kick. We've got a hi-hat. We've got a top loop. Snares. We've got a snap clap, works well with vocals. Then we've got a clap snare for the drop. And here's the beats together. Then we have the bass. But you can see for the drum arrangement we do have some automations on there. We've got some gain automation, so you can see the gain, the velocity is increasing over time, getting louder towards the drop. Towards the build-up section we have snares coming in and they speed up gradually, and also get louder towards the fill section there just before the drop kicks in. In between the drop and the verse we have a big kick, reverb, fill and a transitional tom. Goes like this. Okay, so that's pretty much the drum arrangement. And then if we bring the bass in here, we're using, for this layer we're using a Reese bass, so I use Serum. And this has been taken down a couple of octaves, just a rounded saw, and we've got some sub on there that's been taken down. This was a default preset, but I changed it, and you can see I've taken off all the FX, so I just want it pretty plain, really, a plain bass. And yeah, it sounds like this. Then we have another Serum bass, which has also been stripped down, so there's no sub bass on this. Yeah, some compression and some reverb. That sounds like this, and this is to fill in between, also during the singing, during the build-up, in between the phrases. And then we've also got a version of this also leading up into the drop, which sounds like this. So it's a bit louder, and also there's a bit more sustain on that as well. And then we have the plucky bass, mid bass range for the drop, and that sounds like this. So I'm using 16th notes for this, for the drop, to give it some energy. I'm not sticking with the same bass chords. You can see I'm moving it around to give it some interest here. Okay, so this section here. Okay, so that's the bass, and then we've got some transitional sort of FX noises here. We've got a sweep up here. And then we've got some noise for the drop, give it that atmosphere. And we'll come on to the vocals in a second, and then we have basically the layers here for the lead sections. And then for the lead section here we have ballad piano, which which is a Nexus preset, which is one of my favourite pianos. It's not one of the new ones, it's an old factory preset. And then we have a Nexus pad. So just a warm vintage pad, so that just gives a nice background feel to it. You saw that come in there, and then we've got the leads, the main leads. Got a full stack vintage synth here. Okay, again Nexus, my sort of go-to VST instrument. And yeah, sometimes I adjust the sustain, the cut-off, the envelope, and the decay, and sometimes often automate using those as well. But yeah, this is. We've got a couple of layers of this. We've got the piano here again. That is the ballad grand piano. I've got a layer there that's not quite as loud. And then, yeah, we've got different variations of the leads. So some of these have got increased sustain, and I normally mix another layer where the sustain and the delay are. Sorry, the decay, not the delay. The decay is decreased, so you get more of a plucky sound. So I normally mix up two layers of the lead and have a more pluckier version of it, and then I have the longer sort of sustained notes underneath as well, and it tends to work really well and blend well together. So the leads sound like this all together. So that's the lead for the drop section, and then we have the vocals. Before I send off to be sang, the vocals to be sang, the lyrics, they also do a top line melody as well. So I normally write that in the piano, and here's an example of build up section. You can see the melody pattern is A, A, B, and then this is also A, but then it's cut short because this is the build into the fill section of the drop chorus. So yeah, the melody pattern is A, A, B, A. And then the vocals got sang, and they're really nice. There's some nice harmonies, vocal chops in there. And if I just come from the verse, it sounds like this.
Can I count on this love? Don't throw it all away. Hear the in your arms again.
So we've got a lot of delay in there as well, and reverb, so you can hear that in typical for a progressive house song. So next we have it's a little bit on how I mix the track. So we obviously got a couple of basses, but obviously I want the kick to come through. So in the bass section, you can see we're side chaining the bass. Okay, that's a build up bass. Also using kickstart and side chaining the kick as well into that bass. Okay. In the mid-range bass occurring in the chorus, again we've got a kickstart and we've got side chaining on the kick there as well. And I've also got a bit of EQing there in this section here to remove some sort of muddiness from the bass. On the vocals, if I remember rightly, we don't really have side tuning on that. On the leads, on the main leads, the main group leads, side tuning on the mid-range plucky sound. So that mid-range pluck happens during the main loud vocal section of the drop. So I wanted that to sort of shine through that bass to keep the movement, and so I'm side tuning that and also the kick on that. Yeah, I haven't really done anything on the master yet. I've got a glue compressor. I've got Saturn 2, but I haven't adjusted these settings. So I'll probably look at that when I finalise this track. Here's the final song in the mix.
Can I count on this love? Don't throw it all away. Hear the sound, my heart so loud. Never felt this way before. Everything you say about the moon and back replays in my head. Tell myself I'm done, never ever fall in your arms again. Holding on for love, my head telling me just time for one more lie. Never ever fall in your arms again. Arms again. Maybe it's not over. Searching for one last time. Just one.